would even turn that question around. Was this a proportionate response for the death of Qasem Soleimani? I mean, we're talking about someone who was, in fact, at the center of not just a vast network of Iranian proxies and state and non-state actors for decades, and who, frankly, handed the Iranians the biggest club that they have to play, frankly, when it comes to regional dominance. Taking out or attacking 2 U.S. military bases in Iraq, is that really the proportionate response here? So that would be one question. And I think certainly in Washington, they're going to be looking at every single scenario here as to how best to play this out. We knew in the days leading up that this was going to be not a question of if, but a question of when, and how difficult they were going to make this for the U.S. administration. Again and again, we've heard from the Trump administration folks saying, they don't want a war, they want to have some kind of a dialogue. People talk about the Trump doctrine, particularly in the Middle East, and frankly, what we've seen him when we've seen him dealing with the North Koreans, when we've seen him dealing with the Chinese, hit him hard in the beginning and then back off. A lot of folks, speaking to me privately, coming from the Gulf Arab countries in particular, they say that they are laying low here because they actually believe in the fact that the Trump administration does, in fact, potentially have a plan here for what we're going to see playing out over the next days to months to years, because this isn't a situation that's going to go away anytime soon. So in terms of the response to a potential, and we don't know this yet, I do want to reiterate this, we still haven't heard that assessment of what exactly happened at those bases, at least from the American side. But if there is the potential that U.S. lives were lost here, that does escalate the situation yet again. And you've got to wonder what kind of plans are in place from the United States to address that. Guys.
Hadley, just one more facet to this as well. The other event, which has perhaps been underreported, is the huge shuttle diplomacy going on from Emmanuel Macron as well, who has been speaking to Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan, a man from the UAE, speaking to the Iraqi president, but now we understand speaking to Rouhani as well. Diplomatic efforts to find a way through this as well are going on as well. Any comment on how that's going and likelihood of getting the two very entrenched sides, not necessarily to the table, but to step back a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, it's not in anyone's interest, whether we're sitting here in Beirut, whether we're sitting in Riyadh, the UAE as well, to see any kind of an escalation in this conflict. And everybody loses in this situation for the broader region as well, because any problems with oil prices, any problems in the Persian Gulf, that has a knock-on effect, as you guys very well know, to countries like Egypt, Jordan, Lebanon, etc. So nobody wants this to be escalated. And if they're not having a direct lines of communication, we do know that they are certainly talking through proxies and through shuttle diplomacy, if you will, and they have been doing so, and they will continue to do so, no doubt, because I think what's been very interesting to watch over the last year or so is, the initial, whiz and bang surrounding the election of Donald Trump making his first foreign policy visit, a foreign visit as president to Saudi Arabia. I think that the tone has changed in the years following that visit, in the sense that the Gulf Arab countries have a much clearer-eyed view of what they can expect or not expect from the U.S. president, from the administration. They can definitely expect some kind of support, and we saw that, of course, following the Aramco attacks. But in terms of that longer-term strategy, I think you're seeing these conversations happening at a much higher level now as a result of the fact that they just can't predict what the president's going to do next.
Hadley, let me ask you about oil markets, because we have seen a reaction in recent days on fears that perhaps there may be some form of supply disruption. What we've seen overnight, based on reports, is that it's only been military installations targeted, not oil supplies at this point. But there have been a number of different reports about companies from Chevron to a Chinese company to China National Petroleum Corp pulling a small number of staff from facilities in Iraq. So what is the potential for some disruption to the oil supply coming from Iraq?
Well, what we know so far is something that we've been reporting on, as you know, for the last couple of months in particular, and something that I asked His Royal Highness the Saudi oil minister about as well, which was that the proximity of the short-range ballistic missiles that were placed in Iraq, that we got intelligence on just a month or so ago, that puts them well in line, not just obviously the folks in Basra, the IOCs in Basra, but also the Aramco facilities, the adduct facilities in the UAE as well. That entire region is vulnerable now to ballistic missile attacks, and I think that's something that they've already put in play in terms of their, disaster case scenarios. That's something that they've had to put to the table and to really start working through. And of course, we're told behind the scenes that that's something that they think about on a daily basis as a result of, frankly, the accuracy of Iran's ballistic missile program that we didn't really, I think, realize until we saw the significance and the major hits on Abqaiq facilities last year.